Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sah Nityam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhyatamastu Mahavidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti. So we are meeting after a long time. Uh, the last 2 weekends, I was in Aberdeen in Scotland, and the next weekend I was in Dublin. So for a retreat, two retreats in Scotland and Ireland. So we missed the classes. The last Saturday class was of the Bhagavad Gita, and the alternate Saturday class, as you all know, is either on Vedanta, that is Upanishads, or Vedanta as the science of human possibility. And that is on one Saturday. The next Saturday, alternate Saturday, it is on Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita we have completed almost. We are on the 13th chapter. Sorry, we are in the 11th chapter. And Kshetra Yoga. And in Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, we finished our discussion on the classification of human personality according to according to two different Upanishads. In one, or maybe according to one classification, it is classified as the gross body, Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, and the causal body. So that is the threefold classification which we have discussed in detail. But a slightly better classification according to the different functions of the human body is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad. This Upanishad classifies or describes the human personality in five different ways or five different sheets. Sheets and in the increasing order of its subtlety. Each one, the next layer or the next sheet is more subtle than the previous one. So we start with the grossest aspect of human personality, that is the human body, which is the Annamaya Kosha. Kosha means sheet. So it's not that Annamaya Kosha is something distinct from the other kosha. They're all interwoven into each other. Each impacting the other, each is connected to the other, but they are different in the sense they have different functions. So the next classification or the next sheet is Pranamaya Kosha, which is the vital body, which is known as translated as the vital body. That means all the forces that are needed to give life, prana, to the physical body, as long as the body is alive. These pranas disappear when the body dies because see, the body is there as it was a few minutes before it's there. Same body, but it's not functioning any longer. The reason being is the vital body or the pranamaya kosha has left. That is how they describe death. They don't describe as some of them, of course, describe that the jiva or the human personality has given up its human body, physical body. That is one way of describing death. You give up the physical body. So what happens to the other four subtle aspects of the human body? They are there. They are still clinging to the jiva, soul, according to Hindu philosophy. Only the physical body is given up. That is why we cremate the body or bury it or dispose it out. And according to the law of karma and rebirth, the soul, with all the other subtle aspects of the personality, waits till it gets a fresh body. That is how Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism and other Eastern religions explain the transmigration of the soul. So the soul doesn't go anywhere, it's still the other four bodies cling to it. But not everything of the other four bodies is carried over to the next life. We come to that now. The next level, that is the next body, is the vital body, Pranamaya Sharira, which we have explained in great detail. The five basic forces that are necessary to make a body alive and function as it is doing now. It is functioning in a hello. It's functioning because the pranas, the five pranas are doing their job. They are carrying out their function. For example, there is heartbeat. One prana is responsible for the heartbeat and blood circulation. One prana is responsible for digestion, assimilation of the nutrition in the body. So all these forces are necessary because they enable the body, the physical body, to function properly. Any imbalance in these five pranas, one of them is breath. So any lack of coordination between these five pranas results in disease. You say he has a breathing disorder, digestive disorder, or blood pressure. So the prana, if it increases, the heart pumps more blood and then there's a pressure in the blood. So that all these pranas function according to the laws of nature, our own nature and the nature around us, depending on what input we give. Annamaya Sharira is given food which impacts the Pranamaya Sharira. So every morsel of food that we eat, everything that we drink, affects not only the body, according to Hindu philosophy, it affects the prana. So it stimulates the nerves. The nervous energy is also another prana. So there are five pranas. Depending on the inputs that you give, and also depending on your mental state, this prana and body balance is either disturbed or runs smoothly according to the condition of your mind. So that's why they say psychosomatic diseases. It's not just somatic, but psycho also. The mind has an important role to play. So we come to the third level, which is known as Manomaya Kosha. The mind, it is known as the reactive mind, the simplest definition of Manomaya Kosha. And there is a higher mind, which we'll discuss later. The Manomaya Kosha impacts the body and the prana because of its reactions. So it is known as the reactive mind or manas. The manas or reactive mind has a particular impact on the grosser aspects of human personality. The mind may be simply giving out reactions to the external stimulus that it sees or it hears, and we react. The reactive mind, uh, maybe it's a mental reaction, but you can see the impact of that on the pranamaya sharira, as well as annamaya kosha. So that is why we find so many illnesses of the physical body are related to our mental condition, our mental reaction, to be more precise. Because if a person does not react, if his emotions are under control, if his mind is under control, there's less chance that his mental condition will impact his body. They will function according to the nutrition, according to how you exercise. So it will be purely between pranamaya kosha and annamaya kosha. The mind, if it is very calm, it does not have a major impact on how the body and the prana function. So that's why they say a disciplined mind is necessary. That is manomaya kosha. But who disciplines the mind? The problem is that a mind, the reactive mind by itself, it cannot take decisions. It can just react. If there is something that we like, we are happy. If it's something that we encounter is not, we do not like, we are unhappy. So the mind has no will of its own. It's a reactive process. So who controls the reactive process? It is the Vijnanamaya kosha, the higher mind. So that is how the analysis goes on. They say there's another aspect of the mind which tells the mind whether it should react or how should it react, whether it should stay calm or whether it should react or not to react. All these things is not possible at the level of Manomay kosha or Manas. It has to go a level, one has to develop the fourth kosha, which is known as Vijnanamay kosha, which is a very challenging, because that is how we describe spirituality. That is the first step to identify the Vijnanamaya kosha and develop it. Our spiritual life begins not when we have the lower three koshas perfect in perfect order. Suppose you have a very perfect healthy body, a perfect healthy disciplined life with exercises and nutrition and everything. So you'll have a perfect body functioning perfectly, but and also a mind which is very disciplined, very skillful, carrying out all the tasks that it needs to do in the world perfectly. Even then, there is no guarantee that it will not impact the lower three levels, because the higher level, the one level above that, Vijnanamaya kosha, takes up this skillful personality and uses it for a good purpose. You see, it is the the Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellectual sheath, which tells you what is good, it helps you to make the right choices. Even with a healthy body, healthy mind, and a healthy prana, a person can make a wrong choice and which can lead to the personality's destruction. So it's not enough to have the first three koshas developed perfectly. That is why they say spiritual life begins when you start training the higher mind to make right choices in life so that you don't waste the resources of the three lower koshas. So, when you say Vedanta is a science of human possibilities, you include physical possibilities, which is important. You include uh, the pranic possibilities or the vital forces. So, those are also important to keep the body healthy. Then you also include the skill sets that you develop by developing the reactions in your mind, how you react to the data that is processed in the brain, and how you react intelligently. That is known as Manomaya kosha. So, in spite of all that, still the Vijnanamaya kosha decides whether you use all the three koshas perfectly so that you don't regret. So, you have made a right choice. Every time you encounter two things, you make the right choice, and that leads to further progress. That is where the discriminative capacity or Viveka Buddhi starts. And when that starts developing, you say you are on the path of spiritual progress. Spirituality begins when with a good body, good mind, good lot of energy. So that's why most of these Upanishads were taught when the body was fit, when all the three koshas cooperate with you, which normally happens when you are young, much before youth, or even when you are a child, or maybe 6 to 8 years old, when the child is, at least if it does not have any hereditary disease, if he is fit, if he is a normal uh, child, then he will have all the resources at his disposal. So the Vedic wisdom encouraged as part of the education to develop the fourth kosha, that is Vijnanamaya kosha, along with his other faculties. He needs a strong body that will be done by physical exercises and all the other things. He needs a very strong pranamaya kosha, which also will be taken care of by proper nutrition and other things, and also good uh, exercises. And then you come to the mind, the skill sets that are given in the school will help him to do that also, and is very well developed as far as his career prospects are concerned. He will be considered to be a fit person or a well developed personality, ready to take up all the challenges of life. But spirituality, the spiritual wisdom, if it is lacking, then he'll have to face challenges in spite of his intelligence, in spite of his good health. He may make wrong decisions during critical phases of his life, and that can uh, be fatal. So, the Upanishads say right from childhood, the person is given spiritual training where the intelligent kosha or the Vijnanamay kosha, which we discussed in our previous class, is developed, and that makes him not only intelligent but wise, wise to make the right choices. But the development or the analysis of the human personality does not end here. We saw it last time, and we just began the conversation, the topic where the Upanishads or the Vedanta identifies a fifth level, which is also known as the Anandamay Kosha. Literally, it means the blissful sheath. Now, let us see why it is known as blissful. Because Anandamay Kosha is also, according to the previous classification of Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana. Karana means causal body. So, causal body is a very important concept because this is the body, the causal body, which in its entirety transmigrates to another body. I'll tell you why. The Pranamaya Kosha, though the body has died, according to Hindu philosophy, those pranas which are not necessary for the subtle body also merge into nature. For example, you don't have a heart anymore. You don't have a physical heart. So you don't need that prana which is responsible for your heartbeat. You don't have lungs. So you don't need that prana which pumps, because those pranas simply go and merge these forces, these life forces, they merge in nature or prakriti. There's some force, some prana which is needed to transmigrate the soul, which is known as udana, prana, samana, udana, vyana. We have discussed this in great detail. Even the nervous energy you don't need because there's no nervous system. It has been burnt or buried. So you don't need that energy. The only thing that acts as an vehicle is the Udana Vayu, which is responsible for the transmigration of the soul till it gets, till it is born in a new body as a baby. So all the pranas that you had developed, all the pranas that were once upon a time united with the physical body, as soon as the body is destroyed, they also disperse. So also the Manomaya Kosha. All the skills, unless they were deeply embedded in the causal body, they also will be, they will disappear, because otherwise you would have remembered, every child would have remembered its past life. It doesn't remember its past life because many of the functions or the actions which it did unconsciously, those have simply been lost. It's just like formatting a computer. So the data, the some data which is there, the software and other things, maybe for some basic things will remain. That is what the causal body does. It retains only the characteristics, all the memories, short-term memories, all the skill sets that you needed to develop a career. They would have obviously won't be carried over to the next birth. Otherwise, you would be born with those skills. But we see exceptions in some people who are born with some talents. The reason is that those talents were so much embedded in the causal body. And since the causal body survives all the other bodies which slowly dissipate or merge into Prakriti, they retain some of the very important deep characteristics that you have developed as a human being in your previous incarnation or previous transmigration, before you transmigrated to another body. That is why this Anandamaya Kosha or the causal body is the finest and the innermost of all these sheaths, and is very important because this body will determine our future birth. The others will have a little impact there. They will traces of the pranamaya kosha. Annamaya kosha is totally destroyed. Pranamaya kosha, little prana, that is udana, just the force that is necessary to push the subtle body into the new gross body that it will get ultimately. That depends on the karma, that depends on the cause and effect. That is why it is known as causal body. So the cause, all that we do today becomes the cause for the new body that we'll be taking. So it is an effect. Our birth is an effect of the cause that was our previous life. But not all is stored. As I told you, whatever is stored, the samskaras, the deep impressions or regular habits, and one of them that is carried over to the next birth are our spiritual practices. Because most of the spiritual practices, as Sri Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, because Arjuna was thinking, being a man of the world, he was thinking in worldly terms. It's very logical to explain to anyone that none of the treasures and none of the wealth, none of the buildings that we have painfully accumulated is going to be of any use in the next birth. The child cannot claim what he earned in the previous birth. It's logic, pure logic. So Krishna applies that logic, Arjuna applies that logic and says, similarly, if I take so much of pain and do a lot of spiritual practices, and I suddenly die without reaching the goal. So just like I lose all the wealth, I have to leave it behind, somebody else will enjoy it. So my spiritual wealth also will be left behind. And I have to start from ABC again in the next birth. So that was the question. But Sri Krishna assures him, he says that is not the case. Because after reaching the Vijnanamaya Kosha level, and definitely after identifying yourself with Anandamaya Kosha, the causal body, whatever you do, whatever spiritual practices you do, they are stored in the causal body and they are not destroyed. So Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that you don't have to worry. All those spiritual tendencies you will inherit when you are born as a new human being. Your prana may not accompany you. Obviously, your genes and body and all they have been merged into Prakriti. Even most of the prana goes away. Most of your skill sets which you have painfully accumulated, those also will be lost along with the body and the prana. Even the Vijnanamaya Kosha, whatever you achieved as a result of your spiritual practices, the wisdom that you gathered, the spiritual intelligence or buddhi that was developed, that will be being very close to the Anandamaya Kosha. It is stored in the form of causal body, and that will be your starting point in the next life. But as I told you, when the body is born or when the child is born, it has to develop the body. The causal body, the samskaras, the hidden impressions may be there in the causal body of that child. That is why we see suddenly when the child grows up, compared to other children, he will show some spiritual characteristics right from childhood. Though you may be giving the same training to two brothers, one will become a saint and the other may not be impacted at all because he has been born with the spiritual practices of the previous birth. So it is easy, he has already got a head start. So that is why this blissful Shit Anandamaya Kosha has been discussed in great detail in the Taittiriya Upanishad. As I said, this Upanishad describes the characteristics of this Anandamaya Kosha. What happens in this Anandamaya Kosha? Why is it compared to the causal body or Karana Sharira? Because it is in this body, if you manage to examine or try to do spiritual practices which explores the possibilities of the Anandamay Kosha and also Vijnanamay Kosha, which is Buddhi. But you have to first have a sharp Buddhi, that is a sharp discriminative Vivek Buddhi, a discriminative faculty, with which we can explore further. So, a well defined Manomay Kosha, a highly skilled person, need not be spiritually skilled. He may just be a baby as far as spirituality is concerned. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna, though he never went to school, apparently his Manomay Kosha compared to the university students of those days, including Vivekananda, was compared to them, he had absolutely no schooling. But his Vijnanamay Kosha, or maybe even Anandamay Kosha, was so developed, so much developed that it, all the other things, even a weak body, even if he had indifferent health, it did not matter because those three koshas were most insignificant for him. He lived in a plane where his buddhi was so much active. His spiritual receptivity or the decisions that he took right from childhood, where he rejected formal education, he just chose that which would lead to his spiritual development. So that Viveka Buddhi or the Vijnanamaya Kosha was highly developed in Sri Ramakrishna. So he didn't have to struggle like other spiritual aspirants who, in spite of having a modern education like Vivekananda and others, they have to struggle. They have to struggle because they have to develop the Vijnanamaya Kosha and then reach the Anandamaya Kosha. So what is that Anandamaya Kosha? That is explained in the Taittiriya Upanishad. It says, different from this Vijnanamaya Kosha or intelligent sheath, which is the choice making capacity of the mind, within it is one consisting of bliss, Anandamaya. Maya means full of bliss. Now, by that blissful sheath is our innermost personality filled. This, the intelligent sheath, has human form. Human form in the sense it is not formless. It is contained within the human frame. That is why we feel joyful. If you have a good sleep or if you have a deep sleep, your somebody else will not enjoy it. You will enjoy it. You will feel it is my personality which had a wonderful rest, which touched the Anandamaya Kosha, even if it is because of ignorance. It was in ignorance because deep sleep happens only in ignorance. But that deep sleep gave me joy. My deep sleep will not give joy to my somebody else who is living with me. He will have his or her own problems because this has to have a human form. That's why, in that sense, it has a human form. So, my Anandamay Kosha or the blissful sheath, it has a human form. According to the human form of this, that too has the human form. Of that joy is verily the head, delight the right wing, great delight the left wing, bliss is the trunk, Brahman is the tail and support. So this is a figurative way. We cannot take it literally. Just giving an example that it is like a bird flying joyfully in the sky. One wing is they describe as delight, the other wing is great delight, the left and right wing. Joy is its trunk. The idea here is you should not take it literally. Idea here is a bird which is blissfully flying in the sky above with delight, and Brahman is the tail support. So it has for its support, this joy has for its support because it is closest to our real nature. The Anandamaya Kosha is always in bliss. The left wing, right wing, they are just symbolic. Means on all sides we are surrounded with bliss in that state. If we touch that Anandamaya Kosha through our spiritual practices. But it is difficult because if we were in that position, then life would be only joy. No amount of misery would have touched us. It is because we are not in that, we are not touching the Anandamaya Kosha always in our daily existence that we feel uh, sadness or depression and lack of joy, or we feel miserable. All these things are because we are identifying with the lower koshas, the lower aspects of the human personality. Now, what is this blissful sheath? The Upanishad further elaborates. It says the blissful sheath is that modification of ajnana. It is still part of ajnana. You should remember that. To attain the blissful sheath is not the goal, though it is a step towards knowledge, but it's still that modification of the ajnana, which is not as bad as the other aspects of ajnana. Other aspects of ajnana or ignorance is making foolish mistakes, not training the mind properly, and making careless mistakes, and all those things are gross ajnana. This is subtle ajnana, but still it is ignorance because it manifests itself catching a reflection of that Atman or the Brahman, which is bliss absolute. Anandamay Kosha is not bliss absolute, it is just a sample because it is a reflective, it's just like a sun and the crystal in which the sun is reflected. We think the crystal is bright because it is shining brightly, maybe a diamond or anything, because of the light. The light is not its own, the light belongs to the sun. Similarly, the reflection of the joy of Brahman or Atman within, which is beyond the five koshas, is reflected most in this Anandamay kosha. That is why we feel joyful, though it is out of ignorance. It's just reflected, but we do not know from where the original joy comes. So that is why when you are in deep sleep, when you really get deep sleep, when you get up, you are very joyful that you had a very good sleep. But you did not know why you got that deep sleep. And when you were enjoying that deep sleep, you were in touch with something which was beyond the five koshas. So that is why they say it is still ajnana, whose attributes are joy and true rest. That's why they say the number of hours you really spend in deep sleep gives you total joy and rest. The rest of it is disturbed sleep, which is definitely not what everyone wants. Everybody wants to sleep. Even if they sleep for a few hours, they want deep sleep so that they can say, oh, I had a very good sleep. So, and then it appears in view when some object agreeable to oneself presents itself. That means the joy that you feel when you, something which is very agreeable to you are gravitating towards that. So it is something similar to that because deep within you want to be one with that Atman. But out of ignorance, a little bit of ajnana is there, and that gives you a sample, a taste of the joy of Brahman. So, this is what we should desire, this is what we should try to attain. But unfortunately, when we get up, we get again mixed up with so many lower things that that bliss of deep sleep is missing. Then again, when the body is tired, it gets some very disturbed sleep, REM sleep, and so many types of variants of sleep. And in between, if the samskaras are good, you get some good sleep. That is what he's saying. It makes spontaneously, it makes itself, the Anandamay Kosha makes itself spontaneously felt to the fortunate, those who have very good samskaras, during the fruition of their virtuous deeds. So if you have done a lot of virtuous deeds in this life or in the past life, they say you get very good sleep. So very good sleep in the sense you live, touch that Anandamay Kosha for a pretty long time, from which every human being derives great joy without the least effort. So you don't have to make any effort, just going deep into that state of deep sleep or Anandamay Kosha, touching the Anandamay Kosha, you get great joy without without the least effort. So that is another definition. What happens now? When is this blissful sheath, Anandamay Kosha, fully active? That is the next point which Upanishads want to point out. They say the blissful sheath has its fullest play during profound sleep, means deep sleep. While in the dreaming and wakeful, that is Jagrat Avastha, it has only a partial manifestation. occasioned by the sight of agreeable objects and so forth. So even in the waking state, we get joy now and then. It's not that it's always miserable, but that is only when agreeable things, agreeable objects we encounter. If the agreeable things are not always encountered by us, then we also get misery. So he says it's only a partial manifestation in dreaming and deep sleep. Dreaming, it may be joyful because if you have a joyful dream, then it's fine because you touch a little bit of that Anandamay Kosha even then. So also in the waking state. But definitely during profound sleep, even if there is no dream, there is no waking involved, your senses are totally quietened. You spontaneously get a deep sense of joy, profound sleep when you touch this blissful sheath. So now we come to the conclusion of these five koshas. Why we should study the human personality according to these five sheaths and five levels. Panchakosha Vichara, it is known as the classification or the description of a body according to these five sheaths. The reason being the jiva retains either you can say a threefold body if you don't want this big classification, as we discussed earlier. Three shariras are also enough. The Annamaya Kosha, that is Annamaya Kosha is the gross body. The three intermediate koshas, the Manomaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and the Vijnanamaya is known as subtle body. And the innermost kosha, that is Anandamaya Kosha, is known as Karana Sharira or the causal body. So whether you classify it according to the threefold classification or the fivefold classification, the jiva retains the threefold body or the fivefold sheath as long as he exists in this body as an individual in the relative world. So as long as we are living physically in a physical world and we are not dead, we retain all these three bodies. Stula Sharira, which obviously you have to give up when the body dies. The other sheaths, part of the other sheaths are carried over. That's why we call it a Sukshma Sharira. Not all of the Sukshma Sharira goes to the next birth, as we saw, till it takes up a new Sthula Sharira, new body. So only part of the Sukshma Sharira goes, some strong mental characteristics and also the causal body. The Karana Sharira goes totally because that will determine the characteristics of the new life that you are going to get. So obviously, if you have done a lot of spiritual practices, you won't be born in a body which is not conducive to spiritual practices. You'll just carry on from where you left. That is what Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita, that either you will be born in a family of yogis where you can carry on your spiritual practices as soon as you grow. It's not that he will start his spiritual practices when he's a child, because his Annamaya Sharira, the Pranamaya Sharira, and all of that has to become strong to do the spiritual practices. The child has to get some kind of intelligence. No doubt they are seen to be highly spiritual right from childhood, but still the other koshas need to be strong and the child has to grow when it carries on the spiritual practices from its previous life. That is what he says. Even in the Brahma Loka, that is one idea, concept, just as the Christians have the idea of heaven. There are so many lokas. There are many lower lokas, and Brahma Loka is the highest. He says, even there, the free souls are not free from these adjuncts because there is a touch of ajnana in them. Some ignorance is still there. If they were liberated, if they had moksha, they would not be even in Brahma Loka. Heavens, according to Upanishads, are definitely higher than this
But in some of them, they say even heaven is inferior to this earth because you can't graduate from heaven to moksha. You have to assume a human body for which you have to again come back. And the only chance you have is if you have a human body, a highly developed spiritual body inside a physical body. So, till you die, whatever you do is taken to the next birth. But any other loka, any other heaven you go, you'll stay there till the effects of your karma are there. And then, after the effects are exhausted, you again have to be born. There is no other way. So, that's why intelligent people, I mean, those who are really in want to attain spirituality, they reject the heavens. Like the boy Nachiketa, 14-year-old boy. He was telling his father not to waste his time in all these rituals to go to heaven. He said, "You are just wasting your time." And he said, "You only taught me the Upanishads, where heaven is considered to be far, far inferior to the highest realization." And now, because that boy was sincere, though he was just 13 or 14 years old, he could argue with his teacher, who was his father, telling him that you are trying to go to a place which is temporary. And all through your teaching, you taught me the Upanishads, where you said the highest is to get liberated from all this. True freedom doesn't, uh, uh, the heavens are not stepping stones to true freedom. And now you are breaking your own rules or you are acting contrary to what you taught me. So are you doing the right thing? So he was questioning his father because he was a sincere student. He took seriously what his father taught him. And he said, "Okay, if that is what you want, then I have nothing to do with you. I will go to the king of death. I want to be immortal. I don't want to follow your path because I know you only have instructed me that going to heaven is not the goal." So that is what the Upanishad says, because even Brahmalokas, which is one of the highest kinds of heaven where people just meditate, the free souls are not free from these adjuncts because there is a touch of ajnana in them. A person sheds these adjuncts or these uh, samskaras or the ignorance when he merges into non-dual Brahman by realizing the identity of the self, the individual self with the Brahman. But once a person realizes his unity or identity with Brahman, he becomes free from all bondages and attains supreme joy or bliss, even though, see, this is a new concept, even though he may wear the threefold body or fivefold sheath. That means it is known as a state known as Jivan Mukta. You have the body, you have all the koshas intact, but they are no longer attached to, they are no longer in ignorance. The human soul has touched Brahma Jnana, the non-dual Brahman, and then the body will last as long as they say Jivan Mukta. The question is, how long will the Jivan Mukta live? So example is given, even in Buddhism it is there. The example is given of a chariot. They say when the chariot is broken, some missile comes and hits it, or some arrow comes and hits it, the chariot is broken. But the momentum of one of the wheels which comes out carries it, the chariot will just collapse there. But one of the wheels, because of its previous momentum, that is known as prarabdha, the karma that has started fructifying, will carry on for some time and then stop. So that's why that explains that the Jivan Mukta will still continue to live as long as his prarabdha has to be exhausted. So even though he's living, he's free. So that is why this concept of Jivan Mukti Viveka. I mean, there is a book written by Vidyaranya, one of the Shankaracharyas, where he says there is this Jivan Mukti, that is realization of non-dual Brahman, but still the person lives till his karma is exhausted, and when the body dies, he merges himself in Brahman. So, by discriminating from the self, from these five sheets always, why do we need to discuss about all this? The Upanishad says by constantly discriminating, saying that I am not the Annamaya Kosha, I am not the Pranamaya Kosha, I'm far superior. I do not know what it is, but I'm far superior than my mano, my kosha. I'm far superior than my mind, my trained mind. I'm even superior than my buddhi. Even superior than my anandamay kosha. I don't know what it is, but I continue to meditate on a personal God or an impersonal Brahman. It doesn't matter, because when you meditate on an Ishta or a personal God, you are meditating actually on Satchidananda Brahman, not that form that you see in front of you, whether it is Krishna or Rama or any other God. You always have to convince yourself it is the Brahman that I am worshipping, I am trying to attain. And that Brahman I want to realize through the window of the form that I have chosen for myself. My form may not be the same as your form, which you choose. My door or my window uh, to go out into the infinite expanse of sky outside may be different than the window or door that you used to go out. So the form will change, the door will change, but the goal is finally the same. So discriminating from one of the ways, according to Upanishads, where you believe, we do not believe in a personal God, do not have bhakti, it's just pure knowledge. This is one way of discriminating. I am not the body. That's why Shankaracharya's verse is the Mano Buddhi Ahankara Chitta Ninam. I am neither the mind, neither the body. I am pure Brahman. So that kind of meditation again and again, again and again, reminding yourself of Brahman. You strive for the realization of the true nature of the self and give up its identity with the koshas. So Panchakosha Vichara, Shankara also says in the Vivek Chudamani in 211th verse, the self-effulgent Atman or Brahman is distinct from these five sheets. This has to be made clear. You are analyzing it now just because you can wish it away. You go from the gross to the subtle, subtle to the more subtle to the Anandamay Kosha, and finally know that even that Anandamay Kosha or causal body is a reflection of the infinite joy of Brahman, which is the witness of the three states, waking, dream, and dreamless sleep. The real, changeless, and untainted, the everlasting bliss is to be realized by the wise person as one's own self. So, this is in brief the analysis. We are completing this part now. We'll go to the next part, which will deal with other aspects of the mind. These are broad classifications which we discussed till now. We repeated many things because these five kosha vichara or classification of the body according to three koshas, they are all, though they are essential, they are not very easy to understand. So we need scriptural reference, we need some kind of explanation from Shankaracharya or the Upanishads, which try to explain why we are classifying these human personalities, different our human personalities into different categories or different five categories or five koshas. So it is in the path of Jnana Yoga, it is known as Vichara. Vichara means trying to find out that are you the body? No, I am much more than the body. Then are you the prana? Yes, I am body plus prana, but much more than that. So are you the manas or manomay kosha? Yes, I am the manomay kosha because I use it every day. So also I use the body, so also I use the prana. But then am I only that? No, I have a higher kosha in which I now and then uh, reside. That is the Vijnanamay kosha, where I use my wisdom to conduct myself properly and explore more possibilities, spiritual possibilities. But are you those four? No, I am not only that, I am also the fifth, that is Anandamay kosha, where all my the cause and effect, all the actions that I do, all the thoughts that I think are stored. And I'm not even that because that is just a reflection of the joy. When this type of uh, thinking we do on a regular basis, it's not one day. This Upanishadic was taught again and again to the students. When it's not just academic knowledge, one has to do Shravana, listening, thinking what this means, using all the possible verses and Vedanta, Vivek Chudamani, and all the other books which explain these things in a much better way, easier way, so that you can understand. And as a result of constantly thinking and constantly analyzing, you come to a stage where manana helps you. Manana means deliberation on what you have heard. Shravana means just listening. Manana means thinking. Finally, after getting convinced that this is the philosophy I want to live with or live by, we do nididhyasana. That means you focus on these essential things again and again. One of the ways is japa, which is the simplest way because that is directly you go to nididhyasana. You have enough faith when the Guru tells that this is the mantra, which is the essence of all the scriptures because it has come from somebody who has realized this supreme self, and it is an easy way of attaining that. Then you bypass this panchakosha vichara and focus on that mantra so that you realize these individual courses step by step through a disciplined practice, and you realize your own self. That is a direct method. But there are indirect methods. There are other methods where you take up a personal God, you pray to Him, you use other faculties like bhakti simultaneously. There's nothing wrong. Then you meditate, that is Raj Yoga. Then you also do some service which enables you to forget yourself and do something for others or the God whom you worship, the personal God, thinking it is His seva and thinking that He accepts that work. So your work gets sanctified, the normal work that we do. So through all these yogas, through all the faculties of the mind, we try to reach that reality, that Supreme Brahman who has come in the form that I would like to meditate upon, to devote myself to, because I like that form, I like that personality who came as Ramakrishna, or Buddha, Christ, because they manifested these. They were Jivan Muktas themselves, they were far inferior to that because they showed in their life that their teachings were being personified in their lives. So we meditate, it becomes easy for us to not only discuss their lives but also try to get some inspiration because if they can do it, they come to our level to show that if they can do it, you can also do it. That's not just inspirational, but also it is inspirational as well as educative. We get a lot of education from how to handle situations by looking at their examples and also get the inspiration that it is possible in this life to attain to the state they have attained. So we'll conclude now if there are some questions. We have 2-3 minutes now. So our chapter ends and the next class, I'll just give you a hint what we'll be discussing in the next class. The next, that is the alternate Saturday class, will be on the mind and its ways and how to wield it. Now, having discussed the framework of human possibilities according to Vedanta, the classification, now we come to the real part, that is how to achieve it using starting from the Manomaya Kosha. So, because the other two things, Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha, we assume that it is steady, it is healthy, it is balanced, and it is steady enough to steady because if they are disturbed, then the mind is also disturbed. So everybody starts with asana, pranayama just because they want the Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha to be quiet when we are thinking. If that is restless, unfortunately, then the mind also will be restless. So assuming that those two have been taken care of by the preliminary disciplines, we assume that the mind now is ready to be controlled. So what is the mind? How to wield it? How to control it? How to develop the Manomaya Kosha and the Vijnanamaya Kosha is the topic for the next few classes. It's a very long chapter, so we will uh, try to discuss it as much as we can.
There are three quick questions.
Hmm.
First one, Namaste. Does Swadharma come from the Karana Sharir of the previous life?
Yes, the question is uh, the swadharma that we need to follow in this life, does it come from the Karana Sharira of the previous life? Yes, that is one way of putting it. Because as you have done, the samskaras will determine what your swadharma is in this life. Say, for example, in the previous life, you were a very active warrior or a kshatriya. So, naturally, whatever be your spiritual condition, you will be born with those inherited tendencies which have been stored, not the external tendencies, not the simple skills that you have attained. That may not come to the next life. But the deep rooted tendencies which have been stored in the Karana Sharira will determine your Swadharma. That is true.
The next question, when we apply that discrimination in our day-to-day life, is it that we passed Shravana, Manana, and Nididhasana? Like when we apply
Yes,
discrimination,
yes. The question is when we try to practice discrimination, that is Vijnanamay Kosha is developed, do we have to pass Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana? Yes, Shravana will be at the level of the mind because it's the ear that is hearing something from the books or from the Guru, and it will be taken up, and then Manana will be done using the Manomay Kosha. It will try to think, analyze, rationalize. That is the Manomay Kosha. And Nididhyasana is at the Vijnanamay Kosha level. So at the Vijnanamay Kosha level, you go into deep meditation. You meditate on the conclusions that you have arrived at with the help of your mind. Because even a scientist, when he applies his mind, analyzes using his Manomay Kosha, finally he has to use the Vijnanamay Kosha, or the intuitive mind, to come up with a flash discovery. You see, most of the scientists, they arrived at certain conclusions, and not all of them came to the same conclusion because one had a better intuitive faculty. Both of them, two scientists, would have worked hard. Both of them have equal knowledge. But one has done Nididhyasana on the, he didn't just do Manana, means thinking rationally. After that, he just concentrated a little more than his other fellow scientists. And he suddenly, a flash of intuition told him, this is what it is. So most of the discoveries of this great scientist is because of this intuitive power, which is the result of the unconscious or conscious development of the Vijnanamay Kosha.
the last question, Pranams Maharaj. Thank you. The question is Bhagavati Tanu a kosha?
Is Bhagavad Gita?
Is Bhagavati Tanu
Uh,
a kosha?
no, Bhagavati Tanu is definitely, it cannot be classified as a kosha because that is a totally different paradigm. Sri Ramakrishna says when one is in deep communion with the Ishta, a personal God, though he is in a physical body, he develops a spiritual body which is known as Bhagavati Tanu. All the visions, for example, when Krishna gave the Vishwarupa Darshana to uh, Arjuna, it was not the normal eyes that saw the universal form of Krishna. It was the Bhagavati Tanu, or he temporarily gave him Divya Chakshu, or a divine uh, sort of insight, an intuitive insight into the spiritual truths. So it cannot be compared to any of these koshas. It is beyond the koshas, but it works through the kosha. So you feel as if you are seeing the divine visions through your eyes, but it is not through the normal eyes. So Bhagavati Tanu means it is a special body, special intuitive faculty which has been, by the grace of God, which has been developed, which makes you see things in a very supernatural way. All the visions and all other great true visions, not hallucinations, true visions are a result of this. Uh, one acquiring this Bhagavati Tanu.
Can we take one more?
Yeah.
How does one develop one's Vijnana Kosha?
So how does one develop one's Vijnanamay Kosha? It's very simple. The Vijnanamay Kosha is what is the beginning of spiritual life. When you meditate, when you pray, when you do any kind of spiritual practice, automatically the Vijnanamay Kosha is uh, enhanced or developed. So it's not that it's developed in a day or two, it requires persistent practice. But Vijnanamay Kosha is the one that distinguishes a normal, skilled person, well adjusted person from a spiritual person. So that spiritual person tries to meditate on spiritual things, pray, use all the spiritual techniques at his disposal, which are time tested, of course, and practiced by all the great prophets and saints of the past. And when they do it, the Vijnanamay Kosha develops. Any more question?
No, finish.
Yeah.
Maybe those deep-rooted samskaras which have gone to Vijnanamaya Kosha, they
No, not
manifest,
Vijnanamay Kosha, in the Anandamay Kosha,
Anandamaya
causal body.
they manifest like in the next.
Yeah, they are more likely to manifest. I'm not saying all will manifest. See, you require a body also. When you are born, you may not manifest it as a child. Some samskaras will be manifested even as children. You can see they are different than other children. Some will manifest when they become youth. Some may manifest in a later age. So there is no rule depending on what instrument he has got. You may have the signals, but if your mobile is not having the capacity to translate that signal into some kind of activity, then it will not happen. So it's not necessary that it will manifest all of a sudden. It will slowly start manifesting.
But maybe what happens to rest of the karma? Like as per
The rest of the karma, no, all karma, most of the karma, they are stored in causal body means what? It's the entire karma. The whole karma, what you have done, everything, even the most insignificant action is added. So it's our combined effect of several, not one birth, several births, we do not know. So it's a combined effect of all that karma, which is compressed. Like you compress so much data into a small chip or maybe a small storage device. You think, oh, where was all this information? Because they have been compressed. So it will be there. Only thing, everything will be there, but in a causal form, in a seed form. Yeah, so they will manifest, but not all of a sudden. Whatever is possible, it will be manifest as the body grows, as the human personality develops. Some of the karmas will be released, which are which starts bearing fruit. So not all necessarily all the fruits will come in this life. Some may be waiting for the next birth because this birth they cannot exhaust themselves. If we have more and more births, if you have only one birth, that is the last birth, then all the karmas will be exhausted. Otherwise, he will not get mukti. Even if they say na, small little karma is there, he may be born, maybe he'll die as a child when his karma is over. That's why there is a saying in English, those whom gods love die young. You know, when somebody dies very young, Shankaracharya died at a very young age, Vivekananda died. So it's not, though it is just a proverb, those whom gods love die young because their samskaras are less. Our samskaras are more, so maybe we have to live till 100 years to exhaust everything if we are getting moksha. Or maybe if the karma is too much, then we can assume that we may have several bodies. We'll require several bodies to work out a little this time, little next time, little like
Somebody's asking about the class schedule.
Huh?
Somebody's asking, when is the next discourse? Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a class on either the Great Master or the Gospel. I'm not sure what class was the previous Sunday class, the last Sunday class that we took. If it was Gospel, then it will be the Great Master. If it was,
It's Gospel.
will be announced.
The gospel.
Oh, then it will be the Great Master.
No,
Sri
no,
Ramakrishna.
on the website it says gospel.
Okay, so it's Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.
You can
That's
announce,
tomorrow at 4:30, same time.
you can announce them to refer the website always.
Yeah, you can always see the website. Unfortunately, today there is a mistake. The Great Master has been announced, but it is Vedanta and the Science of Human Possibilities. Because Saturday we always have either Gita or Vedanta. And Sunday only we have either Gita or either the Great Master or the Gospel. So if you see the previous Sunday, if it was the Gospel, then it will be Great Master. But as is announced already, it will be the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Because last time I think we discussed Great Master. The previous Sunday we had a class. So I'll take leave now. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.